I hear music.
Someone's playing music.
Yeah.
That's
Not anymore.
Okay.
Do you guys all live at home, the ones who go to York? Or do you live like away on your own?
I live away.
That's good. I feel like it's more common for York students to live, like go from home.
where are you guys originally from?
Like, I mean, I was born in Iran, but I grew up in Toronto.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, born and raised in Iran till I moved to England when I was 16. Lived there for 6 years, and then Spain for 8 years, and then Canada.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
Traveled the world.
Yeah, I traveled the
Yeah.
world. So we're joined by our participants who are in our meeting tonight. And so I'm going to start sharing screen. I wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who's joined us tonight. And I'm really excited to hear the journey of all the dental students that are speaking for us tonight. And I wanted to give a huge thank you again for you guys coming out. So there we go. And you guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Shamim and I'm the Vice President of Bright Future Dentists. And we're presenting to you here our International Dental Student Journey webinar tonight. We're joined by lovely dental students who are going to share all about their journey with you. And you guys can gain so much insight about how they got into it, their decisions, and their whole pathway. More specifically, we're going to be covering why they studied internationally, their journey before dental school, the whole application process of how they got to where they got, and personal tips and advice. And you guys are going to have a chance to ask your questions at the end of the webinar after our speakers present. But before I pass over the stage to them, I did want to introduce our club to you guys in case you're new and you haven't heard about us before. Bright Future Dentists is a student-run pre-dental organization that is dedicated to helping students on their path to dentistry. Through guest speakers, workshops, community service, and so much more, we aim to equip students with knowledge and insight into the field of dentistry. And we want to create a space for you guys, pre-dental students, to form friendships and of course, network with each other. We want to create volunteer opportunities for you guys and just really narrow down the best path for you in order to get into dentistry. So make sure to join our WhatsApp groups. We send updates onto there as to when our events are happening and you guys get to talk on there amongst each others and form connections. So here are the QR codes and the bit.ly links. You can also find these linked in our bio on our Instagram page. And make sure to join us on Discord. So the link here should be a permanent link, but of course, the link is also in our Instagram bio. And on Discord, you can find future study sessions, future DAT resources, and we also sometimes post our events on there. And it's also just a community for pre-dental students to be able to talk to each other and again, connect amongst each other. So a huge disclaimer that I just wanted to say before we really get into it. This is based on the experience of the dental students, and in no way are we full on encouraging that this is exactly the path that you should take. But of course, advice that we think would be really beneficial in kind of narrowing down your decision that's best for you. So our speakers tonight are Ashkan, Alana, and Dylan. And thank you so much again for joining us. And I'm going to pass the stage over to you guys to introduce yourselves more.
Should I go first?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashkan Masoudi. I graduated in 2017, worked for 2 years in Europe. I worked in Paris for 6 months, didn't like my work, moved back to Spain, worked between Valencia and Madrid for a year and a half. And then after in 2019, for some personal reasons, I decided to move to Canada. And since then, I was busy going through the equivalency process and recently managed to finish the whole equivalency process. And I'm about to write the boards. So that was a brief dental journey. I'm going to pass it to Alana.
Hello, everybody. So thank you guys for having me today. I actually think this is really cool because I feel like it's really important to learn about international school options early on. It's something that I wish I would have had in my undergrad. So yeah, thanks for having me and thanks for putting this on. But yeah, just a little bit about me. So I'm actually from the GTA area outside Toronto from a really small town. I don't know if any of you know it. It's called Schaumburg. It's very small. It's near like King City, Aurora area. But I did my undergraduate degree at Western University and graduated in 2017. So that was in the program Health Sciences. And then in the following January, I started dental school in Australia. So I went to the University of Melbourne. And I actually recently graduated this past December and then moved back to Toronto just in January. So I just finished my boards and I'm just waiting on those results before I can start working. So yeah, go ahead, Dylan.
Hey everybody, my name is Dylan Sharma. I'm a third-year dental student at University College Cork in Ireland. Wanted to thank these guys for having me. Appreciate it. It's a great opportunity to learn about like international dental schools, Australia, Spain, and obviously Ireland. So a little bit about me. I'm from London, Ontario, Canada. I went to Western University for my undergrad. I graduated in 2019. So I did kinesiology. I did a Bachelor of Science in that. So then I applied for dental school like right after I was finished undergrad. And I started in 2019 and I'm going to graduate next year in 2023. So, yeah. I have an Instagram as well. I think they said if we can plug anything, we can do it here. So I'm on Instagram at Dylan the Dental Student. So I post quite a bit about like just dental school in general in Ireland, what it's like studying there, a little bit of few tips of for pre-dental students. And yeah, just because we kind of like know a little bit about like schools like in the States and Canada, but like we don't really know that many things about like studying abroad, like say studying in like Australia or even Ireland. So yeah, this is also once again a great opportunity to talk about that kind of stuff. And actually, I also have a podcast too that I just started with my friend. She's actually a dental student in Australia. It's called Around the Dental World. So we interview dentists, dental students, and people in dentistry just around the world. So it's a good time. So check it out. It's called Around the Dental World. Yeah.
It's really good. I've listened to a few of the episodes.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. One moment. Okay. So we're going to move on to the questions. If anybody has like any other questions about just like more of an introduction from our speakers, I think you're really going to learn more from them like throughout the questions. But of course, like anything you guys want to know more about, you guys can say for the Q&A at the end. You can drop them in the chat so that you don't forget about it, but we're going to save all of them for the end portion. So I'm going to start off. Why did you guys decide to go to that school in that specific country? And are the majority of students that are in your school domestic or international students?
So I'm gonna go first. Yep.
Yes.
As we said. So I'm just gonna say first, like, make it clear that Canada recently became my home. Like, I moved from Europe to Canada a couple of 3 years ago, and I went through the equivalence process. So just wanted to make sure everyone knows my background. Why did I choose Spain? Before Spain, I used to live in England, and I don't know if you know the whole dental situation, how you could apply to dental schools in UK. You have 5 choices, 4 of them dental, and the 5th one is non-medical. I tried to get into the UK dental schools. I just only managed to get into Queen Belfast University. And at the time, I just didn't want to move to Belfast. I don't know, for some reason, just didn't want to. And then I started looking for my options in Europe. And then between Germany, Holland, Spain, I decided to move to Spain. And I think that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And in my course, we had students from Spain, we had students from Italy, we had students from Germany, France, all over Europe. So it was a mix of European students. I'm going to pass it to Elan.
Okay, so for me, why did I pick Australia? So I was just like most people, like really set on going to dental school in Canada from the start. So when I was looking into the process and everything, I realized that the way some of the schools work is that they take your I'm not sure if all the schools work this way or if things have changed, but they basically they take your 2 best years, but not the year that you're applying in, I think. So when I was doing my undergrad, like my fourth year marks were my highest marks, and I was applying in fourth year. So those weren't being included. So I was actually planning on taking like a gap year kind of, and then deciding if I wanted to maybe do more school and then kind of improve my GPA, or just apply in that year so that my fourth year marks would get included, if that makes sense. But then in that time, I was contacted by Auscheck because I told them I was interested at one point in going to Australia, and they just encouraged me to send my application to Australia, but specifically Melbourne, because that's the deadline that was coming up. So yeah, I just sent an application off and ended up getting accepted. And then I ended up saying yes to that because I got to actually start the process, like start dental school in January rather than waiting a whole other year to start then if I got accepted in Canada in September. So I kind of just wanted to get started. So that's why I ended up going to Australia. I also applied to the US, but yeah, that was all in the gap year as well. But it just seemed like when I was deciding between the US and Australia, I kind of had to consider the dollar because going to school in the US would have been pretty much double what I paid as an international student. So that was one of the factors why I didn't want to go to the US. Like, had interviews there, but just didn't want to go there. Yeah. And then for the majority of students, actually for my school specifically, I think a lot of Canadians actually do go to Australia, but my school specifically saves 30 spots for international students, and most of them end up being Canadian. So met a lot of Canadians in my program. So yeah, on to Dylan.
Yeah, so actually, I'm very similar to Alana in that way too. Like, so I was obviously planning on going to a Canadian school. So I was in my fourth year, and like she had said, like a lot of the Canadian schools, like especially in Ontario, that I know, like they take your 2 best years. So then, in like Atlanta, my best year was my fourth year. That's just the way it kind of worked out. But then I was like looking like at studying abroad because the one dentist that I shadowed, he actually went to Sydney for dental school. So he was telling me all about like, how you can study abroad dentistry, you can come back. There's like 3 countries that are accredited. There's New Zealand, there's Australia, and then there's also Ireland. So, and then also actually one of my friends, she studied medicine in Ireland. So like, that's kind of where I got the idea that Ireland was a possibility. So I did some research about that. And then I found the website called Atlantic Bridge. So that's kind of like the equivalent to Auscheck for Irish schools. But yeah, so like I was looking into that, and then I didn't apply to Canadian schools just because wasn't super happy with like my GPA from the previous years. They were still pretty high, but just looking at like the statistics and all that stuff. And then even the like I wrote the DAT. I did pretty well in the DAT, but it was just like it's at a tough time, like when you write it, because it's like November or February, and like that's kind of in the middle of midterms. And like it just like when I was looking at the Irish schools, they look at like GPA. So it's kind of like trying to figure out like what's more important here. Like obviously GPA is very important. And then you can also always write the DAT again, but like GPA only comes once. So I kind of focused more on like, school in like my fourth year, just making sure I could get the highest marks I could. So then, yeah, like the applications for Ireland, they start in January. So like I got in March 1st. So that was really early on. So like I knew kind of like, okay, if I want to be serious about like studying abroad, like I should go and like look into like, different, options. Like Ireland obviously was a great option. And then I got in March. So I was like, it's kind of a no brainer, like, cause they start in September, and then, yeah, like I graduated in 2023. So like just thinking like, if I maybe take a gap year, I do a master's or something, and I apply to a Canadian school, then there's no guarantee that I would get in necessarily. And then that's 2 years kind of just, gone. And then, just, it was a great opportunity. Didn't want to like, waste it. So I went to Ireland, and I have no regrets, and it's awesome that I'm there. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, guys. Honestly, it's kind of funny because
Oh, sorry, I forgot to answer the other part of that question. The majority of the students.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm actually so with the program that I'm in. So like I'm at UCC, so University College Cork. So they have a 5-year program and then they have a 4-year program. So they actually created that 4-year program for Canadians specifically. So when I applied, I think they had up to like 20 spots, I believe, for Canadians. So I think there's a total of 60 people in my class, like the class of 2023. And I think 25 of us are Canadian because like some of them are in the 5-year program. So the way it works is like the first 2 years, like out of the 5-year program are kind of combined for the first year. And then after that, like it's kind of like third year moving on or whatever for second year for me is just the same. So yeah, it's about 25 of us Canadian and then the rest are like Irish, but there's also people from like Australia, like Hong Kong, like different places around the world. So yeah, sorry.
No, no, don't worry. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I was saying Sarah, our outreach coordinator, and I were actually talking about that. Like just in general, like of course, like being a Canadian and like being a domestic student in Canada, like it would be a great advantage if like you did get into dental school in Canada. Like I would encourage anybody to take the opportunity if they had it. But it's whether like you're that student that you're not sure if you could meet like the standards of like your competitive like students amongst your year. Should you go spend 2 or 1 year in a master's, then possibly get in, or maybe try going to a new country and having an amazing experience there with amazing people. Like I know like Ireland itself, like my friend who's in your program, she says like just the fact that she's exploring like a new country is like an amazing thing that she's learning alongside like her dental education. So I think there's
Oh,
definitely
exactly. Yeah.
So true.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. For applications, did you guys apply to Canadian schools as well? If so, did you apply to these international schools before, at the same time, or after having applied to Canadian schools? I know you guys sort of did answer this, but like in terms of advice wise, like how would you kind of like recommend pre-dentals for this?
So obviously I didn't apply to Canadian dental schools, but for my side, I have to say like if someone is thinking of moving away from Canada, if you're fed up with the Canadian winters and you want to just move to Europe and just live there, obviously Spain is like an amazing option because it gives you the alternative having the valid license to practice all around Europe, and also you can practice in England. I'm also registered with the UK's General Dental Council. So if you ever decide that you want to just move away and be in Europe, obviously Spain is a good option. But if you're thinking of moving back to Canada, I recommend that you focus on getting to American or Australian or Irish dental schools first, then try European countries because what I went through, like recently, I went through the equivalency process. I just have to be honest, it was really difficult. It's not impossible, but it was really difficult. So I think Europe should be your last choice or last option. But yeah, that's what I could answer from my side because the rest doesn't apply to me.
Yeah. So in terms of like the timing of everything, so I did apply to Canada in my 4th year, which I kind of knew I wasn't going to get in when I applied, but I just did it anyways, just hoping for the best. And then, so I graduated undergrad. That was 2017, like April or June, whenever you graduate. And then in that time was when I applied to Australia, and then in the fall, the next fall, I applied to the US and then was going to apply to Canada again. So in terms of advice, something that I wish I did differently was probably to take my DAT earlier. I took my DAT in 4th year and I did okay on it, like very average, like it wasn't amazing. And after I got my marks back, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it again. But if I wanted to do it again, then that would have to go in the whole other cycle of application. So I wished I had done it in my 3rd year. So that if I wanted to do it again, I could have done it again in my 4th year. But that was back when the DAT was only offered twice a year. And I just found out that it's actually offered more than twice a year now, I think all year round. So you have so many opportunities to do it. So I think it would be really helpful to do the DAT earlier, like probably third year, because I think it's still like, I think it's within like the 2 years or year that you need it to write it in to be able to have it like valid for your application. But yeah, that's like the main thing that I would say I would have done differently. But otherwise, yeah, I applied to Canada and then applied to Australia after. I don't know if I answered that question properly, but that's the best I can do, I think.
Yeah, so I basically had already said that. Yeah, like I didn't end up applying because I kind of just knew like based on like what I did the research and like how schools kind of work, they were very focused on like GPA and like the DAT score. Like remember I was looking at like U of T, and like I just didn't really see like other stuff that was being asked, like say like a personal statement or letters of recommendation. I think at that point, like I might not be 100% on that, but just like kind of seeing like the way applications, and I was like, I could definitely be better. That's obviously not to say that like Australia or Ireland are not competitive at all, because like that's like, you know, farthest thing from the truth, because it is very competitive as well. Like I remember somebody telling like the statistics, like I know Atlantic Bridge doesn't really like to post it on their website, but like talking to an admissions officer afterwards or something, they said like I think they had over 300 applications or something for the year I would applied or something like that. And I mean, only like 20 or 5 of us got in. So like, it's, you know, it's only so many spots, right? So you still have to be pretty competitive. Yeah, like I would probably do the data a little bit earlier too. Like I wouldn't recommend doing it in 4th year, because like it's just at a busy time. I think now they've changed it though. I think they have, it's not just in November or February. I was talking to my one friend who's at U of T, and like she had posted something that they had offered it more. But yeah, like it's just the timing when I was applying, like you know, just at the worst time, like just to be in midterms and stuff. But it is a full-time job, I will say. Like you guys have already written it, or you're writing it. It is a lot. Like it's hard to balance studying for like, you know, just your basic undergrad degree, like your exams, your midterms, and that. But yeah, like with the timing with like the Irish schools though, because it was January like that I applied, and that was my 4th year, and I got in March. So, you know, I guess I could have applied to Canadian schools at the same time too, because I think their applications were at the similar time. But yeah, yeah, that's all I guess I have to say really about that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so actually the Canadian DAT is being offered so much more now. They have a date pretty much every single like day, like within the next 6 months, because they change it to virtual from paper. So it's no longer like twice a year where you have to do it. You just basically like register for it, then they'll send you a portal for your eligibility, and you pick whichever day you want, whichever location like you want to write it at. It's pretty cool. So I'm kind of glad they changed it this way, but I did hear that the perceptual ability portion, I think that's what it's called, but that portion of
the
it,
PAT, yeah.
Yes, the PAT, that portion of it is now harder for like an online exam. Because some people said that when it's on paper, they had a huge advantage of measuring things like with their pencil, or just like being able to like hold on to it and like see it, you know?
It would be definitely harder on the computer. I remember drawing stuff on my paper. So
yeah,
even the reading comprehension, because I like highlighted, or not highlighted, I like underlined things and like starred areas of that. So yeah,
I think I had the one thing was things like DAT Destroyer or DAT Crusher, one of the two. Like the online thing was like, especially with the PAT stuff, like that was difficult, like the puzzles. And yeah, I agree with like Alana, like the whole reading comprehensions thing. Like it's very different when you're highlighting on a laptop versus like, you know, you can actually write down notes and stuff.
Seriously. And I think what I heard is they give you a whiteboard, so you can still write some stuff down, but I still don't think that's as much of an advantage than like being able to like have it on physical paper if you're a good like paper test writer. I mean, now we've been online for the past 2 years, so a lot of people are better online test writers. So
yeah. So do you guys do go to like a facility then, and you still do the DAT, right? Like you don't just do it at home for obvious reasons.
I wish at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, not at home. You still have to go to a facility. I think they're all in the morning. Same process pretty much, just you go there and it's on a computer.
I think the MCAT's similar because like when my friends were applying to medical school, they were explaining it like that was online, and like my dad was still like on like a written piece of paper. So
It takes about 8 weeks for the results to come back to, which I don't understand because the American one is instantaneous, like you get your result right away, and that one's online too. So I don't understand like why the Canadian online is gonna take 8 weeks, but they say they audit it, so probably.
okay.
Okay. I'm not sure if Ashkan just okay. He left for a second, but he's back. Let me just wait for him to join again. He's back. Okay. So I'm gonna move on to the next question. In terms of application process. So I know like you guys applied through systems, like there's a whole like third party that helps you with applying to these schools. And I know that students can get a lot more information also from those third parties, but can you please give a brief summary of the application forms and information necessary that you like needed to get into the school that you got into? For example, did they require a personal statement, letter of recommendations? How many of them? Do you need like props from like your science courses or etc.? So yeah, we can start answering that.
So for me, most of the European dental schools, they held like interviews, entrance exams. They asked for my personal statement, no letter of recommendations, but that was basically you. For most of the European dental schools, you applied directly to the university, and then after that, they have different requirements. But in general, they ask for your grades, personal statement, and then if you're accepted, you have to do an entrance exam, and then after that, an interview.
Okay. From my school, Melbourne only required GPA and DAT score, and that was it. So like nothing else. It was really simple. But there are other schools in Australia, I think Sydney and Western Australia, they do an interview as well. But I don't think they require any personal statement or anything. It's pretty straightforward and simple to apply to Australia.
Yeah, so for Ireland, I remember the forms. So they needed a personal statement, the GPA, letters of recommendation, and then we had to do a resume. Yeah, like they didn't require the DAT, no interview either. But yeah, like obviously that personal statement is very important because you're kind of selling yourself. I think it's not even very long. I think was it 2 pages or something like that. So you have to write quite a bit about yourself, and then that's kind of your only chance to sell yourself. And the letters of recommendation were very important as well because they kind of told us like it's not about quantity. Like I think you needed at least 2. One was definitely from like a science professor, and then somebody else. Like it didn't have to be a dentist or anything, but yeah, those are the 2. Sorry, like the 2 main big things, like the personal statement and the letters of recommendation. Yes, like I remember my applications, they started like the process started in January. So like I knew like I was applying there. So like I'd started like writing my personal statement, like working on like getting reference letters and all that, like pretty early on. So like when it was January time, like I'd submitted all those documents. You guys want us to give you a little bit of tips on like personal statements and all that stuff, or...
So I had like some questions about personal statement, but like
okay,
we
yeah,
can save that for the end. Actually, I was gonna save my questions.
sounds good.
Yeah. So if there's anything else you guys want to add, you can do so now, but I will.
Oh, I just remembered like so like they like some of my I'm not sure if this is a question later on, but like the prerequisites, are you guys gonna ask that later on, or?
Oh yeah, there is a question.
Okay, yeah.
Rex.
Okay, I'll leave that then. Yeah.
I'm like 99% sure there is. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's literally right here. So
Okay.
basically, how are your course prerequisites different for this program as compared to Canadian schools? And did you have any non-academic prerequisites, such as like a specific number of hours for shadowing, volunteering, etc., that you think gave you a huge advantage or they looked for? Sorry,
Hi, sorry, I was muted. So yeah, they were different compared to the Canadian schools. They just looked at my grades from the college or A levels or high school, if you want to call it. Um, Specific number of hours of shadowing? No, but I did a work experience with a dentist, and that helped me when I was having the interview. I talked about the work experience I had, what I did. So I showed them I was like really interested into dentistry, and they asked me a couple of dental related questions as well. So I think that helped me. But yeah, that's it.
For me, so the prerequisites are pretty similar to Canada, I think. Like when I was applying, I already had these courses because it was included in my program, so it wasn't like an extra course I had to take or anything. So the ones I needed for my school was anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. So only three, which is pretty good. But then I think Canada, some schools need organic chemistry. And then I also think some schools want like a social science class, like something extra like that. But something that was really helpful for me was that when I was in undergrad, I wrote down every prerequisite for every school that I wanted, like that I was interested in. And then I made like a little like checklist kind of thing. And every year or every time I was doing my course, like picking my courses, I just kind of checked it off and made sure like I had everything I needed before the time I graduated. So that I really recommend doing. But yeah, otherwise they're pretty straightforward. But I do think that Melbourne is really strict about what classes actually are equivalent to what they think the prerequisite should be. So I think you have to go through Austrek, which I haven't mentioned before, but that's the company who helps you go to Australia. You send your course code to them, and then they will tell you if Melbourne will accept that as a prerequisite or not, because some like anatomies are not accepted. But yeah, if you're interested, you would go through them. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually Ireland is very, very similar to what Alana just explained with like Australia. So yeah, the courses were biochemistry, anatomy, and physiology. Like those were the three. So yeah, like similar to Canadian schools. Yeah, like I said before, like I applied to a 4-year program that they had offered. I think as of next year, I think because of COVID or some reason, they're no longer offering the 4-year program. So I think they're only offering 5-year programs now. Going to Ireland, UCC. I just checked the Atlantic Bridge website, and like yeah, it says that they're no longer accepting applications for the graduate program, which is 4 years, but they still do the 5-year ones. So I don't think you need those prerequisite courses for the 5-year program. I could be wrong, but I think I'm no. So for the 5-year one, I don't think you need specific prerequisite courses. But yeah, also similar to what Alana was saying, when I was applying, just because you have those courses in your undergrad, it doesn't necessarily mean that they accept those ones. Because I remember I had to fill out like this very detailed form, kind of like breaking down each kind of course and like what was covered in each course. So like even if you say you took like physiology or some basic anatomy course, if you didn't like cover all these like specific topics, like say like cardiovascular system, like the digestive system, like all these like different things, then they think they would look at that in your application, and then they would kind of deem whether you were, if you fit that prerequisite or not. In terms of like shadowing hours and volunteering, obviously it's like recommended. They never really said like a specific amount of hours you needed to achieve, but like obviously when you're applying, it does like help you stand out if you've done quite a bit of shadowing, just because it also shows that like you're obviously interested in that field, but then also you kind of know it's something that you want to do. Cause like that's kind of like the one very important thing about shadowing that like I kind of learned is like, it kind of rules out whether it's for you or not. But yeah, like I wouldn't say you have to hit a specific number, but I would definitely recommend that you shadow and volunteer, because it only would kind of help your application. It would never hurt it. So yeah, try to do as much shadowing as you can.
That's great. Thank you so much. Also, Alana did put the link to Austrek in the chat below. So you guys can definitely use that website to check it out. Dylan, if you could find Atlantic Bridge as well and possibly
Yeah,
drop it, but it's
yeah,
not like we'll even just drop it at the end too.
yeah,
But
sounds
yes,
good.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
if you
go on
guys
to
just search Atlantic Bridge on Google, like it literally, like their website's there, and then they do medicine, dentistry, physio, I think, and pharmacy. So then it's very self-explanatory. Yeah, there you go. She just posted the link. But then, yeah, like you just look under the dentistry program. So like I will say, so there's 3 schools in Ireland. There's obviously UCC, that's the school I attend. There's Trinity, and then there's the Queen's Belfast. But Queen's Belfast is technically in, like it's obviously in Belfast, which is Northern Ireland, which is not actually in Ireland. It's part of the UK. So that's the one school that's not accredited with Canada. So only Trinity and UCC are accredited. So if you're a Canadian and you want to look at Irish schools, like those are probably the 2 that you would want to attend. You could always attend that other one, like Belfast, and sorry, Queens. But then, yeah, the whole board situation is not the same. You'd have to do a different type of um, route of getting accredited in Canada.
Also like a really quick question, Dylan, when you were applying to Atlantic Bridge, and I know this is kind of similar for Austrac, but on Atlantic Bridge website, you had to request for them to send you information, right?
Yeah, like it's basically you just kind of fill out a form and then they kind of like look at your form and then they start the application process. It's just a like a routine thing. They just kind of just checking out who you are kind of thing. But I know their thing was based, it wasn't based in Canada. It was actually based in like California, which is kind of funny because like it was North American Canadian students applying to an Irish school. But yeah, the one thing was just, yeah, that was the only thing. But yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So our next question, I know Ashkan's like not gonna
Yeah.
be answering this one because you didn't write your DAT, but did you have to write your DAT in order to apply for your school? And if so, which DAT did you write? And I will add like a little sub question to this that you guys can answer after. Like the schools that are in your country that you can also apply to, like if you weren't to be at the university that you're at in Australia or Ireland, do those ones like look at your DAT?
Okay.
For Australia, so there in Australia, there's 2 different types of degrees you can do. So there's the graduate and then the undergraduate. So you can still do an undergraduate even if you've already done a bachelor's degree. But these are 5 years versus 4 years. So kind of like what Dylan was saying in Ireland. So those undergraduate ones, you don't need the DAT, I think. But I need to double check that. I think there might be.
I think you're right. You're right. I remember when I was applying that like the 5-year
Okay.
programs like JCU,
Actually,
like
let me check.
Queensland, in Griffith,
Yeah,
Charles Sturt. I think I remember those schools. I remember like looking at them. They didn't need it, but I know Melbourne and Queens, sorry, not Queensland,
Yeah,
Melbourne,
some of
UW, and
them
Sydney
don't.
needed them.
But it's
Yeah.
all listed on the Austrac website. But yes, so if you do the undergrad ones, you don't need the DAT, I'm pretty sure. But for the graduate ones, so Melbourne, Sydney, and Western Australia, which is in Perth, you need the DAT. So I did write it because I was also trying to go to Canada, and I did the Canadian DAT, mostly because I did not want to do the organic chemistry section or the math section. I just was not very good at Orgo, so I just didn't want to do it on the DAT. Yeah.
Yeah. So for Irish schools like UCC and Trinity, they don't need the DAT. I wrote it anyway, just in case I was like going to apply to like Australia or Canadian schools or even the US. I ended up writing the Canadian DAT. But yeah, for Irish schools, both UCC and Trinity, you do not need to write the DAT.
Thank you so much. So in terms of tuition and loans, currency is different, like of course in these countries, like compared to Canada. Did you apply to get loans from Canadian banks to help pay for tuition? And if so, which banks did you apply for and how? Like if as much as like you guys are comfortable answering this.
So basically, I didn't apply to get loans from Canada, but I can say how much are the tuitions in Spain. Studying dentistry in Spain, it takes 5 years, and only for the tuition fee, it will come up to 60,000 euros. I don't know how much is that in Canadian, so maybe around 140, 150. That's regarding tuition fees. I'm done.
Okay. Um,
Mine is brief.
so in terms of the cost of school and everything, so I actually made a video of this on my YouTube channel, like almost the exact cost that I spent in 4 years. I think it was, I don't know the exact number, but it was somewhere between 400 and 500,000, which is a lot. But that includes everything like living, food, rent, tuition, everything. So I got a loan with a student line of credit with TD Bank, and I picked them because I was already banking with them. So it was just easy for me to get one with them. But I do know that a lot of students pick CIBC, and that's because they usually give the highest amount of like the largest sum of money for their loan. Um, but I think that you have to be careful with that because they usually have a higher interest rate too. So the things you need to look at is like amount that they give you and the interest rate. So and all of the banks are going to require you to have a co-signer because they want to make sure that you're going to, if you don't come back to this country, like the loan is going to be paid. So you have to make sure that you have someone to co-sign your loan with you. So my dad co-signed with me. Most people have a family member co-sign the loan with them. And yeah, it's pretty simple. You just go in and I think you have to show like bank statements. Like you just have to like basically show them that you're going to be able to pay it back. And I think you need like proof of enrollment or something like that to get the loan too. But yeah, that's how I did it.
Yes, mine's basically the exact same thing as Alana's. Like I did a line of credit with TD. Yeah, it's similar. It's obviously expensive to go to dental school. You guys probably know that by applying and everything. Yeah, like you have to have a co-signer. Like I did everything with my parents, so like they obviously know a lot more about it than I do. But yeah, that was kind of exactly what she just explained.
I was gonna say, because I'm not sure what they give for you, Dylan, but like for us going to Australia, we had an Ontario loan, which like an OSAP loan. They only gave us every year we got 8,000, except for in our last year they gave us 14,000. I'm curious how much they gave you guys for
Oh,
Ireland.
I
You
honestly
don't know?
don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah, because 8,000, we're like, oh, this is nothing. Like this is not gonna
yeah.
help us at all. But yeah, then I think after COVID they just increased it a tiny bit, but curious if that was everywhere. But yeah.
Yeah.
I have two quick questions regarding these. So one for the OSAP, was it just loan or did they also give grants as well?
I think it was just loan, unfortunately. Yeah. But maybe there's a way to apply for a grant. I didn't look into that. I actually, you know what? I'm not sure if
Because you
someone
have
else
your
had it.
eligibility of grants and loans, and then some people opt out of loans and just collect whatever grants that they're
Yeah.
eligible for. But usually they look at like your eligibility, of course, in terms of like if you have other financial means, like for example, a line of credit, sometimes that could like decrease your chances of being able to get grants.
Yeah. To be honest, everyone, like I know in undergrad, a lot of people get different amounts of money from OSAP, but everyone that I talked to got the same amount. So, but I'm not sure if our financial situations were the same, but I'm sure they weren't. So yeah, I think they just give the same for international students.
Are there any scholarship programs for like all three of like you guys, like at your schools, if they offer any like bursaries or scholarships or any like third party like companies or like organization that offers like bursaries for international dental students or these schools?
There wasn't at my school that I know of.
Yeah.
So
Same with me. There's
yeah,
nothing for Canadian
unfortunately, it's
students.
really hard. Yeah.
But we did, like for the in our university, depending on your grades, after first, if you were in top 5%, the next year you had to pay like 3,000 euros less. That was like kind of the motivation that university was giving us to get like higher grades. But yeah, that's the program we had in our university.
Yeah, that's really good. I guess like that's also a bonus that like would make somebody maybe like prefer going to Spain over Ireland or something.
I
Yeah,
also, oh, sorry.
so at the end of the day, for again, like for Spain, it depends if you want to come back to Canada or not. If you're not, it's a good option. But if you are, you have to go through equivalency process. And if anyone has specific questions regarding equivalency process, just ask it.
Yeah, sorry. The only other thing I was going to say is that a lot of Canadians actually get a job in Australia and they find it pretty manageable to work and do school. So it's helpful. Like if you're really, really worried about it, that's also another option.
Wait, I'm just gonna go back to tuition loans for one more second. In terms of loans, I know that there's a misconception that some people have, or maybe it's a truth, that when you're given your line of credit, you have to use all of it, or are you able to use only some of it?
Pretty sure you can use some of it.
Okay,
I used all of mine, but I think some people didn't.
okay,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah, I think that's similar.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Mentors and guides. Did you guys have mentors to guide you in the process of applying to international schools? If so, are there any resources you can suggest to students for future reference when going to, like, of course, there's Austrag Atlantic Bridge, but like, for example, Ashkan, with like the European like schools, did you mainly research things on your own, or did you also have like a mentor or guide that helped you?
I did it on my own. So basically, I researched dental schools in each country, and then I went on the website, and then I contacted the university directly. So regarding that, I don't know anyone or any company that could help you out, but it's based on individual search.
So like you said, there's Austrek for Australia, but not only like they're so good, they don't even just help you with applying, they actually help you in the whole process of moving there. And like they even met up with us in Australia and like took us to IKEA and like they were so good and they get you to meet other Canadians before you go. They're just amazing. So yeah, check out their website if you haven't. But when I did get accepted, I had never had any experience like this where there was like another student talking about Australia. There was like no one I could find with like an Instagram or a YouTube or something. So I actually messaged Austrek and I was like, I don't know if I want to go because like I'm kind of scared. Like I had never heard anyone's experience before. So they connected me with someone who was the year above me. Like they had just finished their first year. And yeah, I like talked with him on the phone and everything. And then he told me his experience. And then that was like really convincing for me to go there. So that's like the only mentor I guess I would have had. But now there's so many people who have like Instagrams and things that you can see. So yeah, you can always just message those people directly, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, like Atlantic Bridge, like that's like obviously the main resource. That's how you basically apply to the Irish schools. You send them all like your documents, and they basically submit it on your behalf, and then they're kind of like the middle person, I guess. They contact the UCC, and then UCC, once they like kind of make the application decisions, then they tell like Atlantic Bridge, and then they tell you kind of thing. Yeah, like I've obviously doing research, and then I was like I had said, my one friend, like she studied medicine in Ireland, so like she had told me about like a Atlantic Bridge, and that's kind of how I looked into that. In terms of mentors, like I had like the one dentist that I shadowed when I was in my undergrad, and he went to Sydney for dental school, and he would tell me all about like that experience because I think he was like 1 year out of dental school and he was working, and then yeah, he was telling because I think he also went to Western for undergrad, and then yeah, he would just explain the whole process, and then that kind of got me thinking when I was like in like I think it was in second or first year of undergrad, like when I was doing the shadowing, like to kind of research like the different international schools because I think that was a great option as well. Yeah, like and then like that's kind of the one reason I started my dental Instagram is just because like looking at like other Irish students, couldn't find a single person. Like they had like forums and everything, but they weren't really forums where there was like dental students at UCC. Like they were just people who were applying who hadn't got accepted either. And then I thought that was like really lacking because like when I was like applying, I wish there was like one person that I could kind of talk to, like who was already there and kind of see what their perspective was, and just kind of seeing like what life is like in Ireland, because it's like different when like you have a website telling you like one thing, because it's like I want to see what other people like my age or who actually are doing it, like what they're saying and everything. But yeah, like now, like on Instagram, like I'm like one of the few who like has like an Instagram like from the Irish school. So yeah, if you guys ever want to just reach out and just ask any questions about like Ireland, UCC, just dentistry in general, yeah, like I'm always happy to help. Like that's the one reason I started it, because I just wish there was somebody like when I was applying. but yes, like so I had like my dentist, the like that I was like shadowing, and then like obviously Atlantic Bridge, and then yeah. Oh, my Instagram is at Dylan the Dental Student. I just saw a question in the chat. Yeah, well, I'll write down in the chat actually. So
I
yeah,
love that. The key to entrepreneurship and just like everything, like if you have a problem, be the solution to it. And I love that you also like have your Instagram and you do share your experience and like Alana, like you created your YouTube channel and everything. Ashkan, you should make a YouTube channel. But yeah, honestly, I
Yeah,
think
okay, I'll do it.
um, I've seen like in general, like the kind of visibility of dental students has really increased like within the past 2 years. I remember like first starting out, there's another pre-dental association that's at York, but that was like the only thing that like I saw that was like putting my foot in the door. And I couldn't find too much online that I could get involved with. Besides like of course like Austrek and Atlantic Bridge, there were the only people that I could like really connect to that could help me with like kind of a journey of into dental school. But at the time, like I was considering Canadian more. So it's cool now that you get to see students at almost every single like dental school like in all of North America and now like international. It's super helpful. That's part of like why we're putting on this webinar too, like to have like more visibility of that.
if you guys, I will say, if you guys are on Instagram, like there is a ton of accounts, like just like from not just like obviously the international schools, like even within Canada, the US, like I've made tons of friends. Like I've never met these people, but like they're very close and like it's just kind of very cool to see like their different experience. And like we're all obviously all in dental school, like we're all going to be dentists one day or are dentists now, but like just kind of being able to connect and kind of seeing like, different ways and like, what dental school is like. It's very cool. So yeah, I recommend like if you guys have the Instagram, just check it out. Like just search dental students and like you'll find a ton of them.
I met you through Instagram.
Exactly.
Dylan.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So cool.
I love that. I feel like also like seeing people doing things that like you visualize yourself doing in the future like really helps too. Like just modeling in general is like a really great asset to like being a pre-dental student and like seeing all this now online. So I'll move on to the next question. Advice and tips. Now that you've gone through the process of applying for international school and attending one, do you recommend this pathway to other students pursuing dentistry?
I think I already answered this question, but again, if Canada is your home and if you're thinking of moving back to Canada, you should first focus on Canada, and then second, you should focus on accredited programs, which are 4 countries: States, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. And if unfortunately you can't get into any of these dental schools, and then you're thinking about Europe, like Spain is a good choice. You're gonna have a good time. It also gives you the option of working all around Europe, UK. But just the downside is when you want to move back to Canada, you have to go through the equivalency process, which are like you have to do 3 exams, and they're not so easy. So that's my advice.
Sorry, Sarah's gonna
Thanks for jumping and ask Ashton something. Just regarding dentistry in general, because I know you've practiced different places, seem to be practicing here. Do you recommend, I think the bigger question, dentistry in general? Like, what's your experience with working as a dentist?
Was that, sorry, I couldn't hear your question properly. Like,
And then
the microphone is not working, Sarah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say what you just said. So basically she was saying for Ashkan specifically, like, you did say like prioritize Canadian first over international, but like as a dentist now, like since you did graduate like in 2017, I'm pretty sure you said, since you graduated then and now you've been working for a while and you've had like experience working, would you recommend dentistry to anybody who wants to pursue it?
I do, yeah. It depends, like, I wanted to do, okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of background. And my whole family, they're medics. Like my father, my older brother, they're both medics. And then like since my childhood, I was surrounded by medics, and I always wanted to be a doctor. But I did work experience. I went to hospital with my older brother, and I just realized that's not the lifestyle I want. And then I had a work experience. I went to a dentist. Then I realized, okay, it's like in the same. How could I say? Um, it's in health science, but we also have art into it. So it's just not pure like being going to the hospital and not having your life to your own. That's what attracted dentistry first. But yeah, as someone who worked for 2 years, I say if you're really into it, yes, go for it.
Okay, and now we'll pass the question that's on the screen to Alana and Dylan.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I can't answer that other question though, because I haven't started working yet. But I'll get back to you maybe in like a year or something on that. So yes, I would, I'm like, what's the question again? I would definitely recommend that pathway, like going to Australia, because firstly, it just allowed me to go into dentistry sooner than I would have if I continued trying to get in Canada, like we talked about before. And also the education is actually really good in Australia. Like when I was first going into that program, so University of Melbourne specifically, they were ranked really highly in the world. I'm not sure what their ranking is now, but they were ranked really well. And my biggest thing was that they focused a lot on clinical experience. Like that was the main thing I was looking for when I was trying to get in and looking at schools. Like you start treating each other in first year, and then you start seeing patients in second year, and every year you just get so much experience. Obviously that was cut a little bit with COVID, but I still think in the end we got a lot of experience. So yeah, I definitely recommend. And I do think that they get maybe even a little bit more than in Canada, like the experience. I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard that. And yeah, I would just say like there's pros and cons to going to either Canada or Australia. But the main cons of Australia is the cost, obviously, because you're going international, and just the actual distance, like the distance away from home. But I think that those cons are completely worth it. And you, like you were saying before, someone was saying before, like you're not just going there and getting your dental degree, but you're also getting a new life experience, which is actually amazing. And like, I'll never forget that. So yeah, definitely recommend. Oh, and one more thing. I always think like back and think if I was in my fourth year of undergrad, would I have, like if I had the option and I got accepted in Canada and Australia, I feel like it would be really hard at the time, because like at the time I would have definitely picked Canada, but now going back after have been in Australia, I think I would pick Australia, I would just say. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yes, similar answer to Alana. Yeah, like I totally would recommend that you apply to Ireland, and like it's a great program. Like, it's awesome in terms of like clinical experience. Like once again, like with us, like COVID, it was at the worst time. Like so when COVID happened, I was just in my first year. So like it was March 2020. Like that's when they put us online basically. So like it was similar to Melbourne, where I think in like our second year, that's when we're supposed to start seeing patients. We were put online for pretty much a whole year in our second year. Like we were back in clinic or doing like simulations and stuff for 3 months, like last year. But yeah, like now in like my third year, like we're seeing patients and all that stuff. And like, that's really cool. Like, I mean, like getting to like do that. Cause like, obviously it's like one thing, like learning the theory, but like actually applying, like obviously Lana knows this a lot more than I do, because like she's done for years, but like applying that information to like patients and stuff. Living in a different country too, like just a different perspective on everything. And like, I think that's the one thing about like being in an international school is the perspective, because like, I will say it's not for everybody. Like I'm kind of speaking on my behalf. Like I obviously like being like, in Ireland and everything, but it is tough. Like I get homesick quite a bit. Like it just, for me, I've always lived at home. Like I was born and raised in London, Ontario. I went to school in London. So like moving to a different country was a huge step for me. It's not as far as Australia, but like, I mean, yeah, still just like kind of living far away and everything. Like it's not necessarily for everybody. So like, do take that into consideration. Like if you obviously want to do dentistry, like, like if you really want something, then you'll make sacrifices, and like you obviously do get to come back one day. So like there is that. But yeah, like I would totally recommend it. Like you have to do your research ahead of time though. Like look at like what Ireland has to offer as a country, if it's someplace that's kind of for you. But yeah, like I would recommend, like if I were to also play that game, going back and like to my fourth year and telling myself like, should I apply to Ireland or should I wait it out and maybe apply to Canada the next year? I think I'd mentioned this before, but like rather than just like I would just go to Ireland, because like once again, like I'm getting a great education there. At the end of the day, I'm going to be a dentist in Canada. Yeah, and like I don't waste any time. Like I'll be graduating in next year, so yeah, totally recommend applying to Ireland if you really want to be a dentist and you're willing to move to a different country.
I just have one question to add on to this one. So like, of course, like there's that like question of, oh, what if I go into Canadian? Would I have been better off? Would I be richer or like anything? And like kind of like going to that, I've thought about this before where I've wondered if you can defer your dental school acceptance to the year after, or is it just like you have your acceptance, you either accept it or you decline it?
You can't defer it. Actually, sorry, Lana, if you want to.
I think you can. I think it depends on the reasoning. But some people did defer. A lot of students got accepted during like COVID times and then had to defer. But it is possible in Australia. Yeah.
For Spain, no, we didn't have the option because we had a long waiting list. So if you weren't gonna accept the offer, they were gonna offer it to someone else. So we didn't have that option.
Sorry, just want to add, like if you are deferring, I still think you have to pay some, like put some sort of money down. Yeah.
A deposit or something.
Yeah, like, and I don't think it's cheap. Like I think they want you to put something down.
Yeah,
But
like
yeah.
when I applied, like we had to put a deposit down within like a certain amount of time, because like obviously they have other applications, and if you're not really seriously going there, then they kind of go
Yeah.
down the line. Like for that reason, I know like they don't necessarily. I don't think they defer. Like if you don't go that year, then I think you just have to apply again the next cycle. Not 100% sure on that, but like I'm pretty certain that was the way. What
But
was the
yeah,
other part of that?
fair question.
What was the
Yeah.
other part of that question? You said
Oh,
like you
just
said.
like if there is like deferral for it, I guess like another part would be like if people have done it, like usually what is the circumstance? And like I had one more part to my question. But okay, just answer that part. Sorry, I'm trying to think.
The ones that I know, the circumstances that I've heard, one would be visa problems, like problems getting your visa. The second is, I think someone had like trouble with money or something and they were really understanding. This was actually someone who messaged me on Instagram about their situation. And then what was the other? And then just like the COVID, like not being able to get in the country. Those are the three I've heard, but people have deferred.
Yeah.
I remember my other part of the question. Have you had students in your program, year, whatever, like anybody that you know or have heard of that had applied to your school before, got accepted, like decided to not go, and then like applied again and like came?
I don't know anyone in that situation.
Crazy.
Because like I'm just wondering, like if there isn't a deferral option, if there are people who are just like, oh, I'm not sure right now, I'll apply again next year, and then they're like, okay, I'm sure now, so I'll come.
I think like now I think about it, I remember talking to somebody, I think I was on Instagram, where they think maybe they're thinking of applying, or they got in, they didn't go that year, and then they went another year, I believe. I think I think maybe somebody, but yeah, like once again, like you don't defer it, you pay your deposit, you don't go, and then I think you just redo applications again. Once again, I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think, yeah, like my school doesn't do deferral.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
So yeah, that was all of the questions that we had planned for you guys. Thank you so much again for taking the time to spend with us, answer these questions tonight. I'm sure so many people will benefit from this, and we really appreciate you guys. Now I'm going to open the floor. Yes, of course. I'm going to open the floor now, and I'm going to actually go through like the chat, because there has been a bunch of questions throughout. Pedram, if it's okay, I'm gonna start going through the chat one by one. So maybe just drop it down there just so it's kind of like first come, first serve. Okay, so one question is, do international schools value science degrees higher than other degrees such as arts and like liberal arts, science, like programs like that?
So because like for Spain, we didn't have undergrad, so you directly apply to universities after your high school. You just basically had to have sciences like math, physics, chemistry, and biology in your grades. That's what they want.
I think any dental school at this, like nowadays, like any dental school, they want a well-rounded person. So they don't really care too much about it being a science degree. They just want the prerequisites. That's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like even like with me, like I did kinesiology as my undergrad. Like a lot of people don't even know what that is. So like, I mean, like as long as you have the science prerequisites, like obviously I did a Bachelor of Science in kinesiology, but you could do a Bachelor of Arts. At the end of the day, they don't really care. Like as long as you have a good GPA, you have all the courses that they need. And you have like some of a science background. Like you obviously can't go no sciences at all because you won't be able to apply. But yeah, you don't necessarily need to have a science bachelor's degree. And even a lot of people in my program, they have very different like undergrad backgrounds and stuff, which is cool. So
next question, if you guys are comfortable with, like if you guys could share what your GPA was, and for Ashkan, like what your like high school like average in general was.
So for me, for all the sciences, for chemistry, math, physics, and biology, you had to score A's. I don't know if you know how it works. I did A levels in England, so in England, grades starts from A to E. So your minimum, it had to be A. It couldn't be either B or C. It wouldn't be accepted. All of them had to be A's.
Mine was, so I think my second year, oh no. What do I have? Oh yeah. Okay. Second year, I wrote it down like a long time ago because I get this question asked so many times. So second year was like my worst year in undergrad. And this was calculated with the Western calculations. I think because every school does it differently. I think so. Mine was a 3.3 in second year. That was a year, you know, you have orgo and all that. It was just not good.
It's a brutal year. It's a tough year.
Third year was 3.9, and then fourth year was 3.7. So I don't know my first year one, but the way the way Melbourne accepts students is different to Canada. So they do like a weighting system where they weigh your fourth year grades as like the highest. So that's weighted as like 3 times. Then your third year grades are weighted as number 2. So it's so it's like 3, 2, 1. So fourth year is 3, third year is 2, second year is 1. Like that's, so basically my fourth year was weighted the most. And then, so that's why I think having my lowest GPA in second year helped me because it wasn't weighted as much. If that makes sense.
They didn't take your grades? Sorry.
No, they didn't. They didn't take first year.
And do you remember what was the overall GPA like after the weighted 3, 2, 1 all 3 years?
I don't know what mine was, but I don't think they looked at it that way for my school. They didn't look at like an overall GPA. I don't think. Like they just used each separately.
But even the 3 years that they looked at,
I'm not sure.
Like what GPA did you get into dental school with? I think that's the question.
I don't know because I can't remember what my first year was. So I'm not sure. Something like along the average of those. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like so like I know with the Irish schools, I think they used all the 4 years, like they somehow calculated like a GPA, like but emphasis on the last few years. I think like I'm not 100%, I don't remember exactly. But like similar to Atlanta, like second year was very tough because like you have like organic chemistry, a bio chem, which I just wasn't my favorite subject. But yeah, like my last 2 years, like third and fourth year were pretty high. I think it was like around 3.8. Like, but then again, I tell a lot of people like don't focus so heavily on the GPA because I think a lot of people get way too bogged down about that and then they kind of leave the other stuff. Like they don't really worry too much about like reference letters or personal statement, all those other things that like do matter. Because like, yeah, obviously you have to have good grades, but like the schools, especially in Ireland, because even Atlantic Bridge tells this a lot. Remember, they would always say on like the phone or like through emails, it's like, like GPA has to be high, but like the Irish schools don't just like, that's the end all be all. Like if you're like, say like they had a student with like a 3.9, but they had absolutely no extracurriculars, or they weren't like a good overall student, or like their reference letters weren't very good. And say they had a student with like, say like a 3.7 or a 3.8 who was well-rounded, I think they would pick the other person, but like, I know mine was like around 3.8, I think the last 2 years. But yeah, I don't know the exact calculation, how they did it. I know they've looked at all 4 years though for Ireland, with an emphasis on like the last two, but yeah.
And your 4 years, do you mind if I ask, what was your GPA for all 4 years?
The 4 year, I don't know the exact calculation, but like it was at least over 3.7, I would say. Cause I remember like, yeah, it was the second year. First year was, I think not my worst year, but like first and second year were just tough. Cause like even like when you're in first year of undergrad, it's a very big step going from high school. And like a lot of those courses, like you guys know, are just very general. And like they kind of just want to hit like a certain mark to the bell curve or whatever. It's not necessarily like a bad representation of like, it's not necessarily a representation on you. And I feel like that's like with undergrad, like that's really like, it hurts like a lot. Like when you go through your first year and you want to do dentistry or something and your marks are not like where you want them at, and then you kind of just feel discouraged. Don't worry about that. Like, cause I felt the exact same way. And then just, just keep going on. And then, like take courses that you're interested in. I was like in undergrad, like in your third and fourth year, don't just take like the basic courses, like take something you're interested in, because like, you're more likely going to do well in it. And then obviously that will like help your GPA. So, yeah, like I don't remember the exact GPA for the 4 years, but I would say it was definitely over like a 3.7. Yeah, like trying to remember my calculation because it was like 3 years ago now.
Yeah, it's so long
And
ago.
It's so long ago.
The number of years you're in undergrad doesn't necessarily matter either, right? They just have like
Yeah.
a recommendation of whether they don't take your first year or like if they don't take your last year or something, right?
Oh, for Irish schools or?
Well, so Alana said that like they didn't take her first year grades. So like the number of years though that like you would spend in undergrad though necessarily didn't matter, right?
I don't think so. But that's just for the school that I applied to. So I think like the other schools in Australia might be different too. To be honest, I didn't say this before, but I only applied to Melbourne. I didn't apply to any of the others. So yeah, I'm not too familiar with how they did it.
Yeah, like I just applied to UCC because like I was really interested in that 4 year program. Like if I was gonna go to Ireland, I wanted to do only 4 years. And like they did offer a 5 year program. So if I only got into a 5 year, then like I don't know. It's hard to say the what if game if I still would have went to Ireland. But what was the other part of that question? Sorry, like you had asked.
I don't think it matters how many years of undergrad you've done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because like people in my class, like they've done masters. I think like they weren't just like fresh out of undergrad. So like I don't know how they take that into account either. Like what like the GPA wise, like if they just look at undergrad years, if they even took a master's into consideration. But yeah, like I know a lot of people like they're not just fresh out of undergrad, so you can do other things as well to boost your application.
And to be honest, I feel like these questions, like everyone wants to know the answer to that question, and like what's a competitive GPA, but that changes every year. But I think that it's best to ask, like for me, like I would say ask Austrec because they have the stats, like they actually know for each school what got accepted. So like I'm not the best person to.
Exactly. Yeah, I get that question all the time on Instagram. I always tell people like I can only tell you what based on what I got in with. That's not necessarily like you need that specific GPA because you don't want to scare people off saying you need this cutoff when that's not true. Because even talking to Atlantic Bridge, I think it was only like after the fact that I got in that they kind of asked them, and then they were like, we know basically you need like a cutoff of this type of GPA to like kind of be considered competitive. Because like I think they said like on their website that you need like at least like a 3 point. I don't remember what the number was, but that's like just the basic bare minimum you need. Like you have to like kind of get above that. But yeah, if you're going to ask about GPA, talk to Atlantic Bridge. Yeah. Because we don't have all the insight that you guys think we do.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask, so Ashkan, I know you didn't write the DAT, but for Alana and Dylan, what are your thoughts on somebody possibly writing their DAT in the summer after their first year? So a Canadian DAT requirement is that you need to have completed at least 1 year of university. But do you think it's beneficial for somebody to do it right when they finish their first year? Considering like some of the topics that are on the DAT, do you think like they're at a disadvantage if they do that?
I would say, I don't know exactly. You guys actually might know better than me because you're more familiar now with how things are. But isn't there a requirement that the debt has to be written within like a certain number of years of applying? So I don't even think it would be valid if you wrote it
Yeah.
after your first year.
Oh, your
Yeah.
DAT is valid for 2 years.
There
Right
you go.
now. Currently.
So yeah, I don't think that's the best option.
I think if
I will.
you're apply to, sorry, Dylan, if you're gonna apply to U of T, like I would say you can take your DAT for your first time after first year. Or I know so many people just do it as a practice round, like they don't even expect to use it. So
But then what if
Okay.
you did really well?
Yeah.
But yeah,
then-
yeah.
Like I remember with the DAT, there was biology, there was chemistry. Like there wasn't really biochem or orgo on the Canadian DAT. So you technically could write it after first year of undergrad if that's the question. But in timing wise, yeah, like you wouldn't. You would probably best write it after your second year. Like I know a lot of people wrote it in their third year undergrad and then obviously fourth year. But then yeah,
I
for the
honestly
2 year
think-
rule.
Yeah, I honestly think the best time is third year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you guys. Then my next question is, so did you guys do manual dexterity for your DATs?
I didn't.
I
You
did. I did.
Okay.
The only reason I did do the manual, I just wanted to see what it was. Like I know like there was only the one school I think that took it. Was it Alberta? Like you guys probably know better than I do now.
Yeah.
But like there was only one school. But like tell like I would say that like to the Canadians like applying, if you're doing out of province, the chances of you getting in is so slim because of the amount of spots. Because I remember like looking like at inner like just out of province, and it was like I don't know like 3 or like it was like a handful of spots available for like out of province. I remember I just wrote the manual dexterity because I was just kind of curious what it was. And then I think when I was doing my DAT, you were put in like a smaller room, like if you were doing the manual dexterity and the DAT. So I was like, okay, I'll just do it just to see, it's interesting. But yeah, you don't, I don't know if it's like really indicative like how you are going to do in dental school, because obviously a lot of people, I guess in my program, some of them didn't even write the DAT. And like, we're all at the same kind of level now, I guess, third year. So yeah.
My next question is, so somebody asked if there's an advantage to applying through these like third-party companies such as Austrek and Atlantic Bridge, but just from my own like knowledge as well, I don't think there's any other way that you can apply to these schools besides through them, or is there?
For Australia, I think you can do it individually, but then it's not all in one place, if that makes sense. Like you're literally just like you have to look up everything for that school. What do they need? And then you personally, like, I think you even have to like mail it out yourself. So it's just a hassle. And I think the application, I feel like it's free to apply through Austrek, but I think that, yeah. And I think if you do it yourself, there might be some fees involved. So yeah, look out for that.
Yeah, like with Atlantic Bridge, I know all the students that like in my class, like who are Canadian, I believe they all used Atlantic Bridge. I'm not sure about like the other students who are like not Canadian, like who were like from Australia or like another country, what they did. But it would definitely be a lot harder if you were just like going through like actually applying to UCC, like directly or something like that. So like, yeah, like Atlantic Bridge, I know it wasn't free. There were some fees. I think they're like listed, like when you actually do your like application, you get to pay a certain amount of money. But like, then again, like it's like if you were to apply to a Canadian school or even the US, like there's always fees. So it's not like crazy either. It's expensive, but it's not too bad. Yeah.
Sorry, I was answering somebody's question in the chat. Yeah, so Elena makes a really good point for Australia. I in high school half did my application for the like high school like bachelor
Good for you.
Yeah, nice.
I was really discouraged in finishing it. I don't know why. I thought I wouldn't get in for some reason. But looking back, I had a really good competitive average, so I don't know why I didn't bother.
And
But
you would have been like a dentist in like a year or something.
oh, seriously, my mom still like presses me about it. She's like, I'm so mad at you. But looking back at it, like what I found was super beneficial with them is the fact that if you're gonna apply to, let's say, like 5 Australian dental schools, then all you really have to pay for is sending your transcript one time to Austrac. And I think like at York, it was about $40 or something like
Yeah.
that. Whereas like to just pay for like, let's say an application to like one school can be like plus $100 or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I always think about like, oh, if I'd known about it in high school, would I have gone? But I'm like, would I have been ready to move to Australia when you're like just out of high school?
It's also very competitive from what I've heard, like out of obviously it's competitive in general, like even on undergrad, it's just like different marks. But like I remember the one person who like I know like who went there, they were saying they had like a 97 or something average in high school. Like so it was like a very, very high like average in high school. So like it's very difficult. Cause some people like I remember somebody messaged me the other day on Instagram, like, is this too good to be true that I can just go out of high school? And I'm like, yes, you can go from high school, but like, you know, you gotta like have like a very, very high like average. And yeah, it is that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's literally how it was. So like I would say like so in obviously like the GTA, it's very common for also high school students to take private school classes, which can help you inflate your mark in general. So like I mean nobody here is from high school, I'm pretty sure. But like an advantage that like people had was that they would go inflate their marks and then they would kind of apply to these like from high school programs because they would have super high like averages and be able to get in.
Yeah.
I don't know, like you'll definitely have the disadvantage as to like how studious you possibly are with like inflated grades and how well you could possibly do in dental school. But I mean, I think that's like a personal issue that like you can deal with yourself.
Yeah. And you probably have that issue no matter what undergrad you go into anyway. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, just really quickly, I dropped all 3 of their Instagrams again down here for you guys to reach out to them. If you guys don't mind, if you have an email that somebody can reach out to you as well, just drop
Oh
it in
yeah.
the chat, please.
Yeah. I can do an
Just
email
in
as well.
case anybody has to leave like during the Q&A portion.
I had like kind of 2 questions to ask. I wanted to know, first of all, why didn't you just stay back in the country you were studying to become a dentist? Just like as a general question, because I was thinking if I went to Australia, the weather is nice there, so I might as well just stay. But also my other question is, do you feel any kind of disadvantage compared to students that studied in Canada upon like returning in terms of like your network or anything like that?
Those are really good questions. For me, studying in Australia, so like the reason I didn't stay is because I just have like I have a whole life at home, and that was the whole plan, was always to come back home and like be with family and friends. So yeah, that's why like that was always the plan, was just to come back home. But I would say like it's really tempting to stay there when you study there, and a lot of people actually do. Like I'm actually one of the few who came back to Canada. So yeah, it's common to stay back. And the other question was, what was it again? Sorry.
Oh, like the network, like do you feel any kind of disadvantage?
To be honest, I actually talked about this in one of my videos on YouTube as well. I don't think there is any really disadvantages. If you want to keep a network here, you easily can. Like you come home, if there was no COVID, you would come home 2 to 3 times a year, and you can continue like shadowing a dentist or continue talking to dentists. Like some people did a really good job at like keeping a network here. Like it would be a disadvantage if you don't go back. But otherwise, I don't think there are many disadvantages because you're doing the exact same process as the Canadian students. Like after graduating, you write the same board exam and you get a job in the same way, kind of. So yeah, I don't really think there is many disadvantages. Some people say that you're at a disadvantage of if you want to specialize in the future. But because a lot of schools, like I think they favor, or like specializing is really hard in general. Like they only have like 2 to 3 spots for each specialty. And in Australia, if you specialize there, it's not accredited here. So only the actual dentistry degree is, but not the specialty degree. But you can go to the States really easily to specialize there. I actually know 2 people who went there, and then that's accredited here. So yeah, if you want to specialize, I mean, it would probably be better to go to Canada, but yeah, it's not impossible.
Yeah, my answer is pretty much the same as Alana's. The plan, I was born and raised in London, Ontario. Probably going to stay here after I'm done dental school. I always just wanted to practice in Canada. So when I was applying, I wanted to make sure that the school was accredited with Canada, and obviously doing the research, it was Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland. Ireland's a great country. It's just it's great to live in while I'm in dental school, but home is Canada for me. So that's the one reason I obviously want to come back. And then exactly with the disadvantages, there isn't really one. You have to make your contacts, and that's very important. That's one thing they don't really teach you in dental school is making contacts and the whole business aspect of dentistry. So you have to kind of do that on your own. And just keep in contact with people. Even though I'm in a different country, still talk to all these dentists that I've known for a long time, that because I'm one of those people, my family members aren't dentists or anything. It's kind of, when I go out working in the real world, it's not I'm going to have, a family practice that I'm going to go work in or anything like that. But I don't see it really a disadvantage, because I'm there, if I was here in Canada and I was in dental school the whole time, I probably wouldn't be shadowing that much anyway, because you're so busy. I shadowed in the summertime because this is always a great experience. I think the one misconception is once you're in dental school, you don't have to shadow, and that's not true at all, because you learn a lot watching dentists do stuff. It's very different the way things work in dental school versus actual practice. And then you learn a lot in terms of specialty. Implants are very interesting. The one dentist, actually I was talking about him earlier, he went to Sydney. He's that's what he really does. He did a course in implants and everything, and I learned a lot just watching him. So kind of creating that contact in the summertime, when I was back in Canada, I think that's important. If you do choose to go abroad, but you do come home in between your years in dental school, just if you want to work somewhere or something, kind of create the contacts then. So it's not all when you come back, you're searching for a job and then you're all overwhelmed and everything. So yeah.
I wanted to also pass this question over to Ashkan. How about you? I know in terms of trying to get accredited in Canada, do you think it will be worth it for you because you did study dental internationally, or what's your thoughts?
Well, answering the question, I stayed back in Spain. I worked there for 2 years, and the main reason to Canada was because my older brother, he practiced in New York. I didn't want to move to the States, but the closest, so that was the only reason I moved to Canada. But going through the equivalency process, for me, it took 3 years. But then you have to take into account it happened during COVID. So during COVID, all the exams kept getting canceled, and I was supposed to finish the whole process in a year and a half, but COVID made everything more difficult, and it just took me 3 years. I haven't started working in Canada yet, so I don't know if it's worth it or not. But from what I'm when I have conversation with my colleagues or the one that've been practicing for 2-3 years, I think it worth it, because for example, the salary, the average salary, individuals are different, but the average salary, if you want to count it, in Canada is higher than, for example, Spain. Or the financial support you get from the banks or from all these financial institutes, you don't get it anywhere else in the world. In Europe, you don't have the option of working for a while and then going up to one of these banks and ask for a private loan to start your own business. Not many countries provide you with this option, but Canada does. So overall, I say yes. For someone coming from Europe, going through this, it's difficult, but I think at the end of the road, it's worth it.
Just one question, Ashkan. Your university in Spain was taught in Spanish as well, or English?
I graduated bilingual, so I did half the course in English, half in Spanish.
But do you have the option of all English or?
Yeah, well, our university, Universidad Europea de Madrid, has 3 different campuses, one in Madrid, one in Valencia, and one in Canary Island. The one in Madrid, yes, gives you the option of studying dentistry full in English. The one in Spain, no, like for the first 2 years going to be in English, and the last 3 years, which are mostly going to be clinical, you have to practice in Spanish. So.
And the one in Madrid, do you think it's possible, or in general, do you think it's possible to be working in English? Like, or at the end of it, I guess you do have to end up speaking Spanish.
Yeah, well, it depends, because the clinic I worked in Madrid, we had so many international patients. We had patients coming from London, from States, from Canada, because getting a dental treatment done in Spain was much cheaper for them, and also they just wanted to travel to Spain. So if you can end up in a clinic, so like somewhere in central Madrid and somewhere that they see so many like international patients, yeah, you could get off with just only speaking in English. But for your own sake, if you want to live in Spain and just enjoy your life, yeah, you have to learn Spanish. And comparing to other like European languages, Spanish the easiest one to learn. And I'm sure after 2 years, if you practice it, you'll be fluent in Spanish.
And I'm not sure if I caught it correctly, but you mentioned something about working in Paris as well.
Yeah, I worked for 6. That's why I moved to Paris, but I didn't speak French. So I was working at a clinic that they had mostly patients coming from the States. That's how I got away with it. But it was just the lifestyle in Paris. I didn't like it much. That's why I moved back to Spain.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Somebody asked like what your learning strategies are in dental school. Like when you're learning so much information that has to be in your long-term memory, that is gonna be helping you like with your patients and everything in the future. What's the best way that you studied and you utilize your knowledge, especially in clinical?
So for the first 2 years, like for me, a dentistry in Spain, we do it in 5 years. First 2 years were basically general dentistry. So you learn a lot of things and you're not going to remember them in the future. What you like mostly remember is just from your clinical experience. And we had 3 years of clinical experience. I did so many treatments regarding, like, for example, root canal treatments, extractions, restorations. I think that's what I remember like forever. What you learn in the clinic for me was most like how you overcome the complications, how you manage difficult situations, how you manage different cases. I think, okay, for the first 2 years, you have to pass all the courses. It's going to be difficult: head and neck anatomy, pathology, all this like basic courses. But when you get to the clinic, I think that's where you need to focus, or just wherever you go to, whatever you find difficult, go and research, go and ask your professor, look for the solution, because that's what you're going to remember. That's my point of view.
I agree. I think that like where I learned the most was through actual clinical practice. And I also agree with what was said, like when you do something in clinic, go and read up about it after, like that's how it will stick in your head. And always ask questions. That's the main thing. Like talking to people about cases and things, like it will stick in your head more rather than just like doing it and forgetting about it. So yeah, I think like that's the main thing with dental schools. Like, yes, you do have to pass all those courses, but doing it and actually getting the practice is where you're going to learn the most valuable experiences. Yeah.
And also, Dylan, you can add this on to your answer, like once Dylan answers like Alana, Ashkan, but what are like good websites and resources that really helped you like study?
Yeah. I always like to say like I'm always learning how I learn, because like it's like there's not like a perfect blueprint. Like there's not like, okay, if I do it this way, I learn it like even like I'll follow that formula. Because like even like dental school, like every course is kind of different, I will say. Like I find that making questions, like that's very helpful for me. It's like I'll take all the content and I'll like kind of put it in question form, and then like I'll kind of go through it that way, and then I'll like learn and like verbally like answering a question, like I retain it more. The one rule I will say, because like now working with patients, if I can explain a concept to a patient who has absolutely no like idea what I'm talking about and is able to understand it, then I'm good at like explaining something. Then I actually truly understand it. Like say something like a root canal treatment, or like something very basic, right? Like if you talk to a patient, they don't know what a lot of those things are, but if you break it down in the most simple way, even though it's very complex, then you are able to like retain it. You're unlikely to like forget it, kind of thing. Yeah, but just like for me, it's always kind of like just going over things a million times. Like I'm not one of those learners that I read it once and I'm just I remember it and like I have to read it again or anything like that. Also just like scheduling, like when you can study and like kind of making like attainable goals, because like sometimes like I have exams coming up. I'll like kind of plan out like what I want to do each day, because it's like you can't go through like a million things in one day. Like that's just not going to happen. You have to manage your time well. In terms of resources, I'm trying to think of like what I use in dental school. Like I mostly just study from the notes. Like sometimes I will like go on YouTube, just like if it's like a very complex procedure or something like that, or like some concept that's a little difficult to understand. I'll read the textbooks that they recommend. Actually, what's funny? Instagram's actually pretty useful. Like sometimes they'll have like little graphics or whatever, and I'm like, oh, like that's kind of like a very simple way of explaining that, but you kind of learn that way. So like, yeah, that's kind of like the only resources the only resources that I use. But yeah.
One more thing I have to add, I don't know if they do it everywhere, but like in our school, our professors used to provide all the materials beforehand, like before we attended lecture. I know it's difficult. I know like not everyone could do it. You feel lazy or you're not feeling it. But if you go through the lecture material beforehand, the lecture, understand the whole concept much easier. And I think it will stay there longer and you will enjoy the actual lecture. And you're not there like you said, oh, I'm so lost. I have no idea what's going on. Going through the lecture materials beforehand will help you a lot. I just wanted to add that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'll add one more thing. Like I don't actually have any resources as well. Like I'm the same. I just studied off what we learned in our school. But I found the actual amount of material to learn was like insane. Like it's a lot. And I was always the type of person who studied by like writing out my notes. In first year, I realized writing my notes is impossible. I can't write everything out and it's just too much. And also I found that to be more productive, I actually split all my notes like in half with another girl in my class who was my close friend, and we did notes the exact same way. So she would do like one lecture and I would do the next lecture. And then we put it all into a book. So I spent less time making notes and more time like actually like studying them, which was helpful. It was an adjustment for me because usually writing them was like my way of learning and like memorizing. But yeah, it's just a time saver. I found like that helped a lot. Yeah.
I know a lot of people like in med school use Anki, so I was wondering if like active recall.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Oh, is that the
I've seen that,
cards?
but I don't know anyone in dental school who's used those.
It's
Somebody
like
recommended it. Somebody recommended that to me, and I tried it like one time. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like I said, like I made the questions like on a Word document. I think like that's kind of a similar concept to what that is. Like it's just
I've
on like
seen
cue
it.
cards. Is that?
Yeah, it's basically like, in my opinion, it's a really complicated Quizlet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Could be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody learns differently, right? Like some people write out their notes, like what Lina said, like that's very tough to do in dental school. There's just so much content. Like if you're just to go through one lecture, that takes you like, I don't know, an hour or two. So to write out everything, it's just, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'll say if you face any difficulty, go back to reference books. Like I know it's just such a general like thing to say, but reading from the actual book, you'll remember it forever. Like it's not just like, okay, there's a lot of text I have to go through. But for example, if you face a difficulty, like if you face a difficult case in while you're doing the root canal, going back to Traub and Najad, Paul Pathway, you'll remember it forever. I think that was.
And then when you're in dental school, I know there's a passing average. Do you need to be like well above that? Do you still need to be trying hard like for your grades? Is that something that they consider when you're looking into specialized?
I think in Canada it matters. Also in Europe, like if you looking into get into specialty, yeah, your grades matter. But at the same time, if for example, if you're looking into doing, for example, perio, if you shadow a periodontist in your last 2 years of university, that will help you a lot. But regarding grades, I think they matter if you want to become specialized. If not, then just I think passing is enough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Only if you want to specialize, you need high grades. But our passing was just like 50%. Like that's all you needed to pass. Yeah.
Yeah, like similar with us, it's like pass fail kind of thing. But then I think the one thing a lot of people don't understand, like they don't realize, is like dental school is very hard, and passing is not like, oh, like, you know, all I gotta do is get a 50. Like it's very tough to get a 50.
Yeah.
I know like our school, like they also have like honors and first class honors. Like that's kind of the way they do like the higher grades, but like that's obviously more for specializing. Just to finish your degree, you just need to pass every course. But then yeah, like what I said, I guess that's not as simple as like, oh, 50, no problem. So
Yeah.
What was passing for UCC?
yeah, it's like a 50. Like a 50 is a pass, and then like I think 60 is like considered honors, and then 70 is like first class honors. But then again, like they take into account that like getting a 70 is probably like trying to get like a 90 or something. Like it's very difficult. Even like getting a 60, that's probably, I don't know, equivalent to like getting like an 80 or something. I don't exactly understand that, but like yeah, like just it's very they are very tough graders in Ireland. So yeah, like when you go into like get like very high marks in undergrad, and then you go into dental school and you're like, I only got like a 70 in this course. Like what? Like you know, but like it's just the way like the schools work. So don't feel too discouraged if you're not getting like 90s in dental school, because like at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter unless you're like want to specialize. But like I'm not really 100% certain on like that whole process and like, you know, the difference that might make. So yeah.
And also like, because okay, here's my thing that I did speak to a different dental student that's in Canada about. Is it like, do they give you resources? Like somebody asked in our chat, like, do they give you practice questions like how like in undergrad they do for midterms for you to like kind of like rehearse your knowledge and see how well you're doing beforehand and have like a better shot at doing well on those exams? Or is it sort of like you learn material and it's based on your own competency of understanding it? If like you're doing bad, like isn't that kind of a reflection on the dental school itself?
Our school, yeah.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, like our school, for each, because we have tests in different ways. Like it's not just multiple choice. Like we had like 2 multiple choice tests. It was not multiple choice. So we had like a lot of written answers, like long answers, and then like OSCE type exams, and then like actual like verbal, like kind of like interview style exams. So for each exam, we almost always had a mock exam beforehand, which was like a practice exam, I guess, but just to get you comfortable with the exam itself. But in terms of like a practice exam to tell you like you need to know this material, so you'll be okay for the test, I don't think it's like that. It's more like you study and then it comes up or it doesn't come up, kind of. Yeah.
For us, it depends on the course. Like I remember like some courses like pharmacology or like I don't know, some dentistry courses, like they would like release like old exam questions. Like they would have it available on like the UCC website that you could use, but those questions were like rarely used again. Like they would kind of be a similar concept or whatever, but like you could use those. But then like I feel like a lot of the dental courses, they don't really have that. They kind of tell you like what you obviously have to know, like what's like bare essential. But like yeah, they don't really have like practice questions per se. But yeah, like in the lectures, they'll kind of hit home like you need to know this. Like there's no kind of around it, you know, like you need to know this kind of thing. So yeah.
Ashkan, did you have anything?
For us, we had past papers, and for some of the courses, like the final grade wasn't just out of the final exam. We had, for example, 3 partial exams, which was happening like, so that could just make up your final grade. So if you even did really bad in your final exam, if you did well in the other 2, you could have passed the exam. We could pass the module. So in general, yeah, they provide us with like past papers, and also it was dependent on the professor if you wanted to use some of those questions or if you wanted to take it and make it difficult for you. They were all making it like instead of multiple choice. For example, for oral surgery, we had the exam in written, and having oral surgery written is really difficult. So it was dependent on each professor how they wanted to conduct it.
Thank you, guys. So I'll cap it off at one last question for Pedram because he raised his hand earlier. And so Pedram, floor is yours to ask your question.
Thank you. I just wanted to first thank you all for the information that you share. I had a question. So for those of you who, I don't know if you did, but if you took any loans from any Canadian like banks or like financial institutes to support you financially with your tuitions and stuff, I was wondering if you did, how did you do it? And if you needed a co-signer, and if so, if that can be one of your family members.
Yeah. So I did mine with TD, and I'm already banking there, so it was really easy just to say like I need to open up like a student line of credit, and I needed a co-signer. I think for every bank you'll need a co-signer, and you can use your family. I think most people do use their family members, but yeah,
My answer is the exact same. Like it's the exact same. Like I did a line of credit at TD, and then like my parents co-signed. So
okay, and how does that work? Like, do you have to pay it monthly, or is the interest like high? Can you just give a little bit of like a short description of that?
While you're in school, you'll have to be paying the interest like while you're using the loan. So my family helped with that while I was in school, which I think that's what most people do.
yeah.
And then that's basically how it works as any loan works.
It's exactly it.
Yeah, you just pay the interest as you go until you fully paid off. But the interest I don't know for Dylan if it was the same for you. Interest increased like every year. I think it went up.
Yeah, I had to check that, but it probably did.
For me, it's like $200 a month now. Yeah.
Okay. And I was wondering one more question. So besides like being apart from like your homes and like your family, what would you say is the most challenging part about your specific country and school that you're attending right now?
I think for me was learning Spanish. That was the most difficult thing.
I'm sure it would be a whole new language.
Most difficult thing, maybe the distance and the time change, like in terms of like we're in a completely different, like it was crazy, like you're in a day ahead completely, so that was really hard for me to adjust to, like in terms of talking to family and friends at home. Other than the distance and the time change, Australia is a very similar country to Canada, so it wasn't hard to adjust in any other way or anything like that. So
right.
Yeah, like for me, I told you guys I get homesick pretty easy because I'm just like so, like I always lived in Canada kind of thing. So like that's easily like the toughest part about me living in Ireland. Like the system is like a little bit different, like in terms of like the way school works there. The accent's a little bit different, but like that's not like a deal breaker or anything. You get used to the accent. Like Cork's not the exact same thing as like Ontario. Like it is. I won't say it's like England because that's not true. Like it's just a different kind of vibe. But once you like live there a while, you just get used to it. But yeah, like just like living in a different like time zone. It's obviously not as bad as Australia. It's only like really 5-hour difference between Ontario. So like yeah, like when I call home, it'll basically if it's dinner time for me, it's like lunchtime back home. Just kind of doing that. You miss a lot of like things like like stuff that'll happen like with your friends and your family, and you're like you wish you were there, but then you know, it's only like temporary, like it's 4 years of your life. I was really lucky though, like in my second year, like I was at home because it was online. So like I don't kind of take that for granted. Like that year was nice being at home. But yeah, like that's just like, yeah, for me it's just like living away from home. But then again, I just look at it now. I'm like, I only have like a year left. And then I'll be back here forever. So it's nice.
Also, everyone mentioning the spiders. There's actually like, it seems like you would see spiders everywhere, but like where I went to school is in the city. Like I didn't see one spider. Like in my apartment, nothing. Like I didn't have one spider, not even on the wall. But if you like travel out, which you would do if you were there, that's where you'll see lots of spiders. And like where we did like one of our placements was like 2.5 hours from the city, like in a regional area, rural area, and we had a very big spider in our house. We like went through a whole bottle of like the spray, like they spray their spiders with, and I was, yeah, we went through the whole thing. We were so scared because I was with another Canadian girl. We didn't know how to deal with them. So yeah, that's the only experience I had with spiders.
Alana, how big were they?
Do you really want to know?
Yes, I need to be prepared.
like okay, maybe like the palm of my hand, like that's how big. But the legs are like really thick. That's the creep. And like
They're
furry,
tarantulas.
like that, but not. And some of them are poisonous, so you have to be careful. Like when I first moved there, I was so paranoid, like because people told me like they like to hide in your shoes and they like to go in like piles of clothes and stuff. So I was so paranoid. I always turned all my shoes over, like when I wasn't wearing them. And then like I had made sure like everything, like my laundry basket, like had a lid to it, like they weren't getting anywhere. But then I was paranoid for no reason because they're not in the city anyways.
I think they were just eliminated Australia.
But no, I'm telling you guys, I never found one in my shoe. I never found one anywhere, like only when I went on that one placement. And maybe you'll get lucky and live with an Australian and you won't, they'll just deal with the spiders.
Did you see kangaroos and koalas when you were there? Like, cause like being in the city, like when we were in Melbourne, like was it harder to?
Not in the city, but you just drive like even like 10 minutes into like the suburbs areas and you'll see them like in the fields and stuff, and koalas and trees. Yeah.
What was the favorite place that you visited? I know it's kind of a different interview now, but like, what was the favorite place that you visited? Like when you were in Australia, like did you see like the Great Barrier Reef or all that kind of stuff?
My favorite place was a place in Queensland called Noosa. It's like it's so pretty. Queensland has amazing beaches. Melbourne not so much, but Melbourne's a really cool city. But yeah, I think Noosa, if you can check it out, or Byron Bay. Byron Bay is really nice too. Yeah. I
really want to go to Australia. Like me and my family were saying, like after like I'm done like in Ireland, like that's the one vacation we're gonna go to. So I'm always like taking these suggestions from like all the dental students from us, like who went to Australia. I'm like, I'm making a list for a reason because I'm gonna go see these places. So definitely, I'm kind of sad because we had COVID, so I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to. Like I never got to go to Western Australia, like Perth, because they had the strictest borders restrictions at the time. So yeah, I don't even think they're opened up yet, like still at this point. So I never got to go there, but everywhere else I think I kind of went. Yeah.
Dylan and Ashyan, can you also just share like the best part about living in the city and country that you're in, that just makes your experience there as a student so much better in terms of tourism, just your favorite thing?
Well, in Spain we don't have spiders, but we've got bottles of sangria. So I think that will make it work. But living in Spain is just experience that Spanish culture. I think that's the best part. And also living in Europe, like every weekend, if you decide to go away, you can grab a really cheap return ticket and go to another country. You could be in Italy, France, UK, or like wherever else, Holland. Experience that type of European lifestyle, I think was really nice. And I still miss it. And then Spain, you realize they don't take life too seriously. They just enjoy the life, they're just not all about earning money or just like, I don't know. They don't have that kind of mentality we have in Northern America. So I think that was the best thing experience. And the Spanish culture is really rich. And even in Spain, there are tons of places you have to visit, especially Andalusia. You've got Granada, Malaga, Sevilla, Cordoba, all these cities that they're just lovely to visit. But yeah, it's just experiencing the culture was the best part.
I think, yeah, similar to Ashcan, like similar to like, just kind of seeing how it's different in Ireland, like how Irish people are. They're very different than Canadian people. It's kind of like different perspective, right? Like we're obviously all in dentistry, but like they treat things like a little bit differently. Like they're very chill kind of thing. We all get stressed as dental students, but they have like different ways of like, coping with the stress and everything. And just seeing a different perspective. It's a beautiful country too. It's unfortunate because like it's just kind of like I've been in dental school during the COVID era and everything. Yeah, like there's pubs and everything. I saw the one comment and everything. But yeah, like my first year, like I saw Dublin. I visited there 2 times. Like I'm at UCC, which is in Cork, which is like the southern part of Ireland. And then I actually went to Belfast in my first year, which is technically Northern Ireland, but you're within like the same country technically because you didn't take a plane or whatever. That was just beautiful scenery. Like you'll see like a lot of the stuff in movies, like, oh, that was filmed in like here. Like I had no idea or whatever, right? So I definitely want to visit the country more, like when I'm like closer to graduation and everything. Explore it. Like there's tons of things to do. Yeah, like when I have time, it's really busy time with school, I think now, like especially being in my 3rd and like going into my 4th year, like those are just like the busiest years. Traveling, they always recommend to go in like your first year because that's not as busy, and then you're obviously not really seeing patients and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like once I graduate, I'm definitely gonna explore more in Ireland. And then yeah, like kind of like Ashkan said, like living like in Europe, like it's very easy to travel to other European countries. Like I went to England in my first year, just visit like my family. Like I go there all the time, like before like I was in dental school. But like just to go on a very cheap flight, like it was like I think like I don't know, 20
Ryanair.
euros or something. Yeah, Ryanair, exactly. Yeah, like it was like something like 20 euro flight. Like it was more for my taxi to get to the airport than the actual flight. Like it's crazy. Like but yeah, like just doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, the culture, Irish culture is very, very unique. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So we have gone to like about almost close to 2 hours now. I really wanted to give a huge thank you to all 3 of you for joining us tonight. It's been so insightful hearing you guys talk, and I really wanted to appreciate all your advice and just experience that you shared with us, because like I said, like the visibility of dental students is really important to us pre-dental students. It helps us kind of navigate through our paths and our futures. And you guys really do guide us with the best advice and best experience that you can give us. Your words of encouragement mean so much to us as well. So I wanted to thank you guys. And I also wanted to wish you the best of luck with all your future endeavors, with everything you're going to do in dental and beyond that.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And good luck
Thank
to
you.
all of you guys with everything and hopefully getting into dental school one day.
Thank you.
You'll get it for sure. You'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna
will.
say it's when you guys get in, you definitely are gonna get into dental school. Only
Yeah,
positive
when?
vibes from us.
And don't close any doors. Just take every opportunity as it comes, like how we kind of did, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you.
isn't one way of doing anything, right? There's tons of different ways. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good luck.
thank you.
yeah,
So
good luck, guys.
their emails and their Instagram handles have been in the chat, but I'll also put it into the caption of the post that promos for this webinar. So you can check out our Instagram on bright_future_dentists. And yeah, thank you to everybody who came and watched. And I hope you guys all have a great night.
Thank you guys.
Good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.